Hello, listeners. This is Adam. I hope you're doing well. Today is a special episode of the podcast. It's going to be a very long one because we have two interviews as well as our normal proceedings, you should say. First, Alex Baumgartner. Shenanigans, you should say. First up is going to be Alex Baumgartner, our good friend of Five Reasons Sports, to talk about the Panthers. After that, our good guy, Curtis Martin, to talk about the Penguins and his love of Benjamin Sherratt. That was so much a few seconds ago. He quit the call because he was sick of me saying it. And then after that, you're going to be hearing us with our normal spiel and all this going on around the league. So I hope you enjoy this, and we'll talk to you in a second. Lads, we're back.
Hello.
Woo! Okay, so today, this may not be the first episode of these sort of types that you hear. It may be the first, second, third, or fourth. We don't know yet. We're going to have some people on to sort of talk about the trade deadline with specific teams. Now, one of the most interesting teams in the league in the Atlantic are the Florida Panthers. And who else can we have on? You know him from Five Reasons Sports. I think it's third time on the show. You know him. You love him. Please welcome on Alex Baumgartner. Bomber, how are you today, my friend?
Doing semi-great. Time change, not so great. But first episode I've been on where the whole crew's actually here. So instead of last time it was like 1.5 on one podcast, now it's actually 2 on 1. So pretty happy about that.
That's I forgot that. Yeah, jeez, wild stuff. Wild
quite
stuff.
A few episodes like that lately.
I know, right? It's like it's I don't know. I was trying to make a joke, but it didn't come to me. Anyway, Alex, right now we look at the Florida Panthers, and you think right now they're the guys. They're first in the Atlantic. We think they can score at will. They've got one of the best pairings in the league with Ekblad and Weegar. If we're looking towards the trade deadline, what is that primary need that you're thinking of right now? What do the Panthers need to set them over the edge?
Until a couple of weeks ago, I was saying maybe the primary need is another defenseman, maybe slot him in left shot, somewhere like that. Now, certified top line right winger will put the team over the edge. That's what I want to see at the deadline.
Adam is not happy.
So,
you might have ruined Adam's day.
I'm going to pitch Ben Sherratt later, whether Bomber likes it or not. Everyone's getting a piece of that today. Curtis too. Mike, when he gets on, everyone's getting a piece of Ben Sherratt. It's interesting because I think a lot of that discussion was the defense earlier in the year. I guess we can talk about that right winger because I think we all have a certain name in mind, and that guy's been the discussion around the league very, very much. Now, first, I should probably actually throw that over to our boy Daniel here. Actually, I forgot you were gonna ask that. So go ahead, Al. Sorry, Daniel.
Oh, no problem. Yeah. So, Alex, I really want to know what is the interest on Claude Giroux for the Panthers, and whether or not that's the fit that you see them getting them over the edge.
Well, we've seen reports come out saying that the Panthers were interested in Giroux. There's also reports saying that Philadelphia was interested in Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett has been tearing it up in the AHL. I think he, in 11 games, he has 10 points. He's not an AHL player. He just doesn't fit this Panthers team right now. So based off the reports, it sounds like there's interest, and Claude Giroux makes sense in Florida. Over the last 2 seasons, they've been looking for a right winger to play with Barkov. Verhaeghe, big, I know you guys love Carter Verhaeghe on this show. I love Carter Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe is that guy on the left wing. Very suitable left wing over Barkov. It works. And he doesn't always have to play with Barkov. He can create his own offense. Carter Verhaeghe is a top 6 winger. Say that right now. Other than that, they've been trying a lot to see who they can get up there. They've been putting Mason Marchment up there for a little bit. And while it kind of works, Mason Marchment is too electric on that third line with Anton Lundell and Sam Reinhart. So they shouldn't break that up if they don't have to. So I like Claude Giroux there because, Claude Giroux is an elite player. I mean, his heydays are behind him, but he can still perform. And when someone hits the market like that, and it doesn't sound like you're going to have to give up way too much to get him, if it's a first, a prospect, and maybe filler, you got to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty interesting when you mention a possible package for Claude Giroux. Do you see it whether or not he becomes just a rental for now or something that you could see be extended on less money afterwards. And when you mention prospects, is Florida in a position right now to kind of give up someone like Owen Tippett, where he is going to be an NHLer, but he's someone you see right now, like, is he going to fit the long-term vision?
Well, Florida has a lot of decisions to make because Owen Tippett right now, I don't think right now he's in their plans for this season. He had his chances. They put him in the lineup, sent him down for conditioning stints, put him back in, scratched him, started performing well again. But I guess there's just no place on this team. I think Florida has the deepest forward core in the NHL because, Maxime Mammon can't get games sometimes. And when they put him on the first line, he plays pretty well. Can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's just wondering what the value of a possible Claude Giroux trade would kind of be, because you mentioned that,
and then the re-signings, right?
Yeah, the re-signings of whether or not
Okay.
you give up Owen Tippett for a rental or you see Giroux as someone who could be here for another short term.
So Drew's 34. He's going to expire after this season. Florida has to start extending people very soon. Bobrovsky still has that contract for a couple more seasons. Mason Marchment is a UFA, so you got to make a decision if you're going to bring Mason Marchment back, because he's going to get some suitors on the open market. Now, we talk about it all the time, the no state tax, that helps a lot. Nice climate, that helps a lot. Contender, that helps a lot. And subsidizing how much you have to put into a contract. We've seen that with Tampa. We're starting to see that with Florida. You can see that in other, southern teams with no state tax. That is a decision that they're going to have to look at. Also, Huberdeau is going to get a lot of money. He only has one more, and he's not going to Montreal. Huberdeau, 95%, I think he's going to stay in Florida. I mean, you see him at the pool on his Instagram stories. He doesn't want to live in Montreal. He doesn't want to drive in the snow. He wants to walk out in his shorts, listen to Mackenzie Weegar's weather report. So I think Claude Giroux would be a rental. Now, the Panthers are in a situation where they look like they're one of the best teams in the NHL. They are one of the best teams in the NHL this season. But you got to add at the deadline, because if you don't add, someone else is going to go add. Colorado might add. Tampa still might add. Everyone adds at the deadline. And Florida has a lot of prospects that doesn't fit this window. This team has a unique window where Bill Zito got everyone on 3-year contracts. Everyone signed 3-year contracts. Sam Reinhart, Bennett, Verhaeghe, they're all around the same time. Forsling, they're all going to expire around the same time. Their window is 3 years, I think. That's when all their guys are in their prime. That's when all their contracts are in. It's 3 years. Denisenko, I don't think he's going to fit that 3-year time period. So maybe they look at him. Maybe they move him. Tippett, I think they tried to see if he would fit that window. The fact that he's in the AHL this close to the trade deadline, I don't know. So I think they would do a package like that.
Mm-hmm. I guess like a big thing right now is you've mentioned that forward depth and what they could add there. And you mentioned also the left side of the defensive end. I'd like to throw that over to Adam.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just one quick thing before I get into talking about trying to pitch you on Ben Sherratt, and more importantly, to see like how you feel about if they did do a Jacob Chikrin trade. I just quickly wanted to ask, because he's that number one trade chip you're looking in Florida, for people who may not know, what type of player is Owen Tippett? What does he bring to your lineup?
Owen Tippett is a guy who clearly has a lot of skill. He's a fast skating, extremely hard shot winger. You can see flashes of skill every once in a while. I almost feel like every time I watch him, he kind of gives me a Sam Bennett without like the two-way vibes. I think Sam Bennett's a pretty underrated two-way player just off the physicality. I think Owen Tippett can drive the rush in a very similar way because they have a very similar skill set, in my opinion. Sam Bennett learned how to use his skill set to his advantage instead of trying to toe drag every time he comes into the offensive zone, which from my Calgary friends have told me he used to try and do that a lot in his earlier years. Now Sam Bennett uses his speed and his strength to drive the offense. I think Owen Tippett has the potential to do that because I've seen it before. Sometimes he just doesn't simplify the game enough. But he's 23 years old, I believe. He has lots of upside. I mean, top six winger, in my opinion, if he's in the right system. It's just when you're on a team this stacked, sometimes you get lost. And it might not be the best place to develop your game if you're not ready. So, if he goes into a situation where, he's one of the guys, like look at like a Chicago. Some of their young guys tear it up because there's not a lot of guys there. Or like even Philadelphia now. So I think if you put Owen Tippett on a team that needs help, I think his game can, progress that way.
Interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I want to say maybe a week, 2 ago, Darren Dreger sort of gave us a name, like on not us personally, I wish, but on Insider Trading, talked about some of the primary suitors for Jacob Chicker, and Florida was still there. Now, I think I did listen to the episode of 5 Reasons Sports you were on, talking about Chikrin and sort of and I think you guys all turned, you said maybe for a cheaper price, you go Ben Sherratt. I'll do it, man. I'll do it. Anyway, though, if we're looking at the Panthers, if they do pick up a Jacob Chikrin, he's got the term, he's affordable. We know that, and, if you want to talk about Antoine Lundell, go ahead, because I know you're a big fan of him, but what is a legitimate package that you would be comfortable in, maybe our boy Owen Tippett's in that conversation, a package that is actually realistic for the Panthers to give up in order to acquire a Jacob Chikrin?
Well, first of all, let's throw some actual legit reporters in here who have sources. So Greg tweeted, Wisniewski tweeted, one GM told him that the price is still high on Jacob Chikrin. David Dwork, who is a Florida Panthers beat reporter at a WPLG Local 10. He is also at 5 Reasons Sports YouTube. Very legit. He tweeted this. This is on par with what I've been told of the asking price in any deal with Florida. Unless they lower the ask, it's not going to happen. David knows it's not going to happen. If Arizona is still looking for Anton Lundell, Spencer Knight, plus, first of all, they're out of their minds. Second of all, it's not going to happen. Now, if we want to do a realistic package that I think is fair, Jacob Chikrin has term. He's young. He has an upside. And he has a really nice contract. He also has a modified no trade clause coming in a couple years. So Arizona's best time to capitalize would be right around now. I would say first round pick, Owen Tippett, and then you get your pick of Denisenko or Samiskovic. Those are 2 first round picks. And then filler. So a first round pick, 2 former first round picks that were drafted in the last 3 years, and then filler, maybe another draft pick and another prospect. B-rated prospect, filler, something like that. I think that's a decently fair trade to get a guy out of a place that isn't performing well.
Fair enough. And
I don't think Arizona would take that. That's just what I'm throwing out there.
I don't understand why they're asking for more than Jack Eichel. Like, it just doesn't to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, there's a discrepancy between those 2 players, yet they're asking. Probably because
they don't have to trade him, right? And maybe that's their thing. If we don't have to trade him, so you give him the boatload. But we've also all year. Go ahead. Sorry.
If we're looking at what Bill Zito's done with his trades over the last year and a half, he doesn't give up a lot for anything. The Sam Reinhart one was the biggest splash he made, and he traded a 7th round goalie and a first round pick that's protected. He got a top 10 protection on a pick for Sam Reinhart. I mean, when I heard that asking price, I laughed and I said, that's not going to happen, because Anton Lundell is legit a second line center on most teams in the NHL.
What is it you call him, the mini Barkov?
Well, he plays like him a little bit. They put him on the penalty kill. He gets soaks all the time. great with his stick. He back checks, two-way player. He's a rookie. He is 2 years older than when Barkov was when he entered the league. So it's kind of unfair for me to say he's better than Barkov his rookie season because Barkov is also 2 years younger. But Anton Lundell's 20 and he legit looks like a future Selke candidate, 5-6 years down the road.
100%. One of the good crop for rookies this year, and Antoine Lundell is one of the more quiet ones definitely to talk about. All right, Alex, Bomber, sorry, not to mix everyone up here. Okay, I want you to picture something for me here. Entertain me here. Okay. Obviously you got Uyghur and Ekblad, and what a pairing. That's great. Imagine, it's the playoffs. Marner and Matthews are busting down the wing. Ekblad's not on the ice. Let's say Leafs had last change or whatever, right? Okay. They don't go down the right because Radko Gudas is there. They don't want to cross that bridge. I mean, these guys are going to play together if it happens. But anyway, then on the left, it's Ben Sherratt. Can you just imagine it? How great would that be for the Florida Panthers?
Well, first of all, if there was Ben Sherratt ever on the Florida Panthers, they would never put him out there with Radko Gudas. That's the first thing that wouldn't happen.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Only Daryl Sutter would do that. Only Daryl Sutter would do that.
I mean, it would be fun. Let me dream.
I don't think Andrew Burnett would put two bruisers out there.
It would be funny, though.
Maybe not in a playoff series.
Sorry?
Maybe not in a playoff series. Yeah, we kind of heard rumblings a couple months ago. Maybe Ben Sherratt was a target for the Panthers. Personally, if it was me, I wouldn't pursue it. I know that disappoints you. They also just signed Petteri Lindholm, who came from Jokerit, I believe.
Yeah.
He, first game in was against Philadelphia. 2 huge hits, both clean. He actually broke the boards. Florida just put in some new boards. Nice little digital display, and he broke the boards on the hit. I'll send you guys the hit after, but it was one of the bigger hits I've seen all year. He's a big body guy. Now, I don't know how he's going to pan out in terms of the long term, but, a nice 6th, 7th defenseman, and he shoots left. So I don't know about Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt.
All I'm saying is, you have Ben Sherratt in the playoffs 4 rounds deep. The GM's listening. I'm telling you, he's the right option. This could be the last one for me here, Alex. Or Bomber, crap. I'll get that right eventually. Spencer Knight, I want to ask about him. Have you seen enough from his game, not only what he's played in the NHL, but his time in AHL Charlotte? Have you seen enough to prove that he's a reliable backup at this point in his career? We know he's a very young goaltender. Let me make that very, very clear to people listening. Or do you think the Panthers should go at the deadline and get like a nice cheap 3G, maybe a Mott and Bow if Jake Allen is there and healthy? I'm not saying you're going to get like a second. I'm just curious if you think you can rely on Spencer Knight at this point going into the playoffs. If something happens to Bobrovsky, that's all I mean.
Spencer Knight, after that playoff series, he came in. People said he's going to take Bob's job. And I came on this show and I told you guys that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I was right. And you could kind of tell he was a 20-year-old goalie getting through the motions of a full NHL season. They sent him down to Charlotte to get some conditioning in, to get some starts. He came back. He looked lights out. When Spencer Knight is so young, and with young goalies, it's hard to tell. For any goalie, it's hard to tell what's going to happen. Now, from what I've seen, I don't know who you can get off the market that's going to be available that's going to be better as a backup than Spencer Knight in the playoffs. I don't know.
Would you like some names, actually, quickly?
I would like to hear the names.
So I put together, I call it the 100 names trade bait board. About 100 players that we've at least once in reports heard some names. Sorry to cut you off there, Bobber, but
I want to hear the goalies, yeah.
So these are it seems to be maybe the market. Marc-Andre Fleury, probably not. Semyon Varlamov, maybe not. Antoine Forsberg, James Reimer, Braden Holtby, Mackenzie Blackwood, probably not. Ilya Samsonov, Martin Jones, Georgiev, Halak, Korpisalo, Mike Smith, and maybe Peter Mrazek, probably not, but those are just some of the names that are probably out there.
How'd you forget Charlie Lindgren? That's so unfair to him.
Because I only had 100 names here. I wasn't putting him over like Calvin DeHaan or anything.
Yeah, but he's going to go to Edmonton.
But stop it. Anyway, but those are some of the goalies out there. Maybe not the sexiest name, but like Mark Jones for like a fifth or something. Not too bad.
Forsberg one I like for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
I think that's one that, should be looked at. Also, Florida has such a winning culture right now in terms of this season. Now, not all time, obviously. This is going to be the first back-to-back playoff appearances they've had since 1997 when they made the playoffs this year. 96, they went to the Cup Finals, and they went back to the playoffs in 97. They haven't been back-to-back since then. I just don't think it's necessary. I don't think the backup goalie is too much of a need. If Bob goes down, forbid, within the next, when's the trade deadline? A week away?
Monday.
Yeah.
Not this Monday, obviously. Sorry. The 21st.
If he goes down on the next week, then yeah, maybe you want to try and get one of those guys that you just mentioned. But other than that, I don't think it's too much of a need for the Panthers to get a third goalie.
Sorry, fair enough. I forgot I was muted there. Go ahead, Alex.
So I want to shift away from the trade deadline a little bit. There's a couple topics that I think we should touch on since we have you here. First, at the beginning of the season, after all that Kyle Beach stuff, obviously Joel Quenneville was let go or fired from the Panthers, and they brought in Andrew Brunette, and he has done a hell of a job with the Florida Panthers, and he still has that interim tag on him. That's got to go, right, at some point, right, in the relative future.
Yeah, there's no reason why it should still be there. It's going to be removed. It has to be. He came in the very tough situation to kind of come into, and he acted like a professional. First time as a coach, interim coach, took over an extremely hot team, and he didn't let anything slide. They had a couple rough patches here and there, as every team would, but I've been pretty impressed with Andrew Brunette, and he looks like he's more of coming into the comfortability where you see when they're down in the game, he's not afraid to change up the lines. The power play looks a lot different now. The penalty kill is still bumping. It's going to get removed, I think. It's just, when do you do it? I don't think it's going to be done in the middle of the regular season or towards the end of the regular season. That's probably going to be a after the playoffs type of thing, because I don't really see who they would bring in that would be better than him. The guys clearly love him. They clearly have the same, fun, energetic, environment that they had last season transferred into this season. Probably after the playoffs, that tag will come off.
Right. And it's actually funny that we left this one till the end. That's probably the most dire question that needs to be asked. Last week, there was some kerfuffle, we'll call it, on Twitter between a certain NHL agent and a certain athletic reporter. I won't name names because that's unfair.
People email me saying that you're an embarrassment.
Yeah. Why should Jonathan Huberdeau be considered for the Hart?
Well, besides the fact that if he doesn't get Hart votes, Alan Walsh is going to have a great day on Twitter. He's gonna break the NHL left wing points record. I think he's 5 away from tying it right now. He's already broken the Florida Panthers single season assist record twice. Defensively, Jonathan Huberdeau looks like a different player too. A lot of debate was coming from people that don't watch the Panthers saying Jonathan Huberdeau doesn't play defense. Well, that's not true at all. He's playing penalty kill now. He's making smarter plays. Now, Huberdeau used to turn the puck over a lot. Now he still does it, but it's gone down a lot, in my opinion. He's back checking more. He's getting in lanes more, and he's still putting up the points. The Hart's so interesting because are you going to give it to the guy with the most points? Are you going to give it to the guy who has the most goals? Are you going to give it to the guy whose team really needs him? That's what's so confusing about the Hart, because I really don't understand what people are voting on. I would put him in my top 3 just because of the season he's having. to put up those kind of numbers on a team where you have 5 guys with 20 plus goals, he should be up there.
I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. So top 3, am I fair to guess that that's Matthews, Shesterkin, Huberdeau?
I have Matthews, Huberdeau there, and right now it's Shesterkin, but I can't sleep on McDavid either, even though he's always in the conversation.
What was it, 2 or 3 points last night for McDavid against Tampa? He's heating up. You can never count out Connor McDavid. Okay, well, Alex Baumgartner, the great guy. Great jerseys, always great hat. I'd love to have him on as always. Thank you for your time as always. If you want to just plug all your stuff, the floor is yours.
Honestly, let's just keep it nice and short. A Baumgartner 91 on Twitter.
Great guy. All right. Lads, we are back. The second edition of the trade deadline preview, whatever we're calling this. We had Baumgartner on. Good talk. Thank you again, Alex, for coming on. And now Curtis is back. Curtis, how are you, my man?
I'm gonna give applause to myself. I'm great. You know what? After the first episode, how much I took it off the rails, I'm surprised I got the call back. So I'm happy to be back. And I'm kind of feeling in a weird situation because I know I'm gonna have to live up to the hype of Alex starting this off. So looking forward to doing my best to keep up with him.
Well, first off, I think we should say in a few days, it's a big day. Happy early birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So the Penguins are an interesting team. They withered the storm of injuries to start the year, as we know. Big part of that was our boy Evan Rodriguez, and since then they've been flying. They're basically starting to get ahead of the Rangers when it comes to the divisional spot and all that. It's going to be an interesting trade deadline because it's fair to say this could be the sort of final big push for the Penguins. Alex, why don't you start us off here?
Yeah, I want to start with one particular player, actually a former Leaf.
Leafs legend, one might say.
Sure, I guess. Yeah, Leafs legend, Kasperi Kapanen. The last little bit has been rough for him. I know he's been scratched the last few games or so. What on earth has gone on? Because when he was traded, there's some in Toronto who, I won't name names, but there were some in Toronto who were crying, not literally, but very upset that they traded Kasperi Kapanen of all people. And, he had that really good start and now things are kind of starting to die off. So what is going on with Kasperi Kapanen?
So first of all, I want to address the part where you're saying people were crying about him losing. I thought that was the worst trade of Jim Rutherford's tenure as the Penguins. Not because Kasperi Kapanen's a bad player, but to give up a first and a second, and we could go on with all of the stuff they gave up for basically just Kasperi Kapanen. It was kind of rough. So I'm not gonna lie, I knew it was gonna be a losing trade either way, in my opinion, unless he came out and was an all-star. And it's only gotten worse with time. And I think that he's still got talent. I think he's still got that speed that we talk about, but he can't do anything with it. If we kind of want to harp back to a thing that Steve Dangle used to say when he was on the Leafs, was the fact that his stick and mind can't keep up with his feet. And that's the big problem, at least from my viewing of Kasperi Kapanen. And I agree with Steve on that point exactly. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like, it's hard to crack a top 6 on the Pittsburgh Penguins because if you don't work with Sid, it's kind of like Phil. Like if Phil didn't work on that third line, we could have talked about Phil getting scratched. Like it's a hit or miss whether these people that they bring in actually work with the top 2 lines with Malkin, Gensel and Crosby and Rust and all those guys. It's just they kind of have to play with it, and Kasperi Kapanen hasn't done that, and that's why I don't think. I think his market is going to be really low this summer. So I guess if you wanted to bring him back, you could, because I'm pretty sure he's a UFA at the end of this year. I could double check that. But I think just with him, it's just that he hasn't been producing. He hasn't been playing well. And then we could go back to even the whole passport issue with him trying to come over at the beginning of the bubble season last year and him missing 7 games. I'm pretty sure from all reports I heard from the people actually reporting in Pittsburgh that the team was really pissed off about that. So he already wasn't on a great foot to start last year. And then he just hasn't been able to perform. Is that partially because the Penguins haven't put him in a great situation? I don't know. He's played with Malkin, or if Malkin hasn't been there, he's played with someone else. I've like Evan Rodriguez, but I just think that, it just doesn't work, and some players just don't work. He's an RFA. Okay, thank you. But I just think that, I honestly wonder if you try and trade him this offseason, because I'd almost rather give that cap space, and I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, to your big guns and keep them around than keep a guy like Kasperi Kapanen on for, I don't know, I think you're looking at a bridge deal, so another 3-4 years, maybe a 1-year show me deal. But even then, I think, well, I talked about this on last show. I didn't think the team was going to be this good this year. And I think that the window is still, as we speak, closing ever so slightly. And it's just one of those things where it's like, do we want to find out this guy can actually do it when we've seen for 3 seasons that he hasn't been able to do it with the people we have currently around?
Right. And, I think Ron Hextall kind of addressed this earlier on this week, saying they might go after a middle six winger. So assuming that, there's this hole with Kasperi Kapanen, who do you see as potential deadline pickups for the Penguins in that spot, middle six forward?
I honestly think that's the one spot they don't need to pick anything up for. I know Hextall mentioned that, but I think that there's a lot of interesting depth on the roster and in the AHL that I would much rather use than taking one of our picks and throwing it on. I think the first name that comes to mind is like an Andrew Kopp, if the Jets are looking to sell off some of their UFAs. And I think, guys, that's what they have to do. They have to acquire UFAs because of those big contracts that are coming up at the end of this year. Like, they have no cap space. Like, let's just be honest. They have no cap space whatsoever. So if they want to be in a good scenario to re-sign these guys next year, which I think, we can talk about it again. I keep on referring to this conversation. We'll have it, so I won't diverge on it too much. But I just think that if I'm going to get someone, I want someone like an Andrew Kopp who can, slide in on that third line, give a little bit of grit, because that's the one thing that the Penguins don't really have, is a lot of physicality or a lot of grit. And I think that Andrew Kopp, along with that's also a good offensive player. Maybe not he's not going to blow your mind with his offensive skills, but if he has a wide open net, he's going to put the puck in the net. And you can't say that about every NHLer. So I think that, Andrew Kopp would be my pick, would be my number one for the wing. But I also don't think that's where they need to address. That's not their biggest need at this point.
Okay. So you before we started recording, you did say you had a list of candidates that you think that the Penguins should go after. So you don't believe Ron Hextall. Who do you think the Penguins should go after then?
Number one on my list is Braden Holtby. I want Braden Holtby as a backup because Jari has been good. He has dipped a little bit from his all-star level. He's still been good over the last little while. And that's happens with goalies. Look at Jack Campbell. Sorry to rub it in Leafs fans, but that's just been a mess. So, it happens. Goaltending's like that. And I just think Holtby, I question whether it was more of a Washington system that made him a good goalie, but seeing him play in Dallas this year and the short spurt that he played well in Vancouver last year, it showed me that he can play on any team. And I think with the Penguin system and, my pick for Jack Adams and Sullivan this year system, I think that, he could fit well in there. And we don't even need him to play major games. We just need someone besides Casey DeSmith, who's been abysmal. We brought him up last time I was on the show, and it hasn't gotten any better. If anything, it's gotten worse. So I think, honestly, with that, it just comes down to cost. I'm honestly comfortable giving up a 3rd round pick for Braden Holtby and getting him as my backup goaltender. And I don't think the Stars should expect much more, maybe a 2nd if the market's hot on him. Because if you're going for the 1st round echelon goalie, then why aren't you going for Marc-Andre Fleury? And that's not what they need. They don't need a starter. They need a backup. And I see Holtby as a 1B in this point in his career, which is what
No, I was gonna say, wouldn't that be what a story that would be? Bring back Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, yeah, I get it. You got Tristan Jarry, but like bring back Marc-Andre Fleury, get the gang back together. Sid, Malkin, Letang, Fleury, go for a nice cup run.
I mean, you guys know that my favorite player growing up was Marc-Andre Fleury, so it sounds nice. It's a romantic thought, but I mean, like most rom-com movies, they're not based in reality. So I don't see I don't see Fleury coming back. There's a reason why they let him go. It was a mutual decision. Yeah. He wanted to be a starter. He still wants to be a starter. I mean, this year his numbers aren't great, but he also plays on the Chicago Blackhawks. So how much can we read into that? I think he's shown that he's still at least a like top 15 goalie in the NHL over the last couple of years, which makes him a starter in this league. And, you know, you could argue whether that's, you know, already gone downhill this year, because again, you know, the Chicago thing is really tough to really decide what's going on with that. But, you know, personally for me, I just think that Holtby's a better fit because he's more of a backup guy. Dallas has like 4 goalies right now that they need to sort out. They need to get rid of someone. You're not getting Ottinger because Ottinger's their future. And also, you guys know I'm a little bit of a goalie nut. Ottinger's a guy that I've been really high on for a while. I like the way he's been playing this year. He's looked good. So I think it makes sense to move on from Holtby because no one wants Khudobin. His contract's awful. I'm sorry. Like, you're just going to have to eat that. Like, unless you're giving us a first round pick and Khudobin and we're giving you almost nothing back, then if I was any team in the NHL, I wouldn't touch that. Even the Arizona Coyotes, you have to give me a first round pick back to touch that contract. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where I think backup goalie's the biggest need, because if we really want to go back, it's also a little part of my mind and thinking about last year's playoffs when Jarry basically the bed. Wait, are we allowed to swear on this?
It's okay. I'll edit it out.
Yeah, you can. Actually, can you put the quack, like the little like duck,
the duck
over that?
Yeah,
sure. do that. That's gonna be fun.
I'll find it.
Anyways, and so wouldn't you feel better having Braden Holtby there to go to be like, hey, you won a cup, you've had playoff success, you've had success this year, then that's yours now. I'm not saying that I'm willing to just like throw Jarry out the first second that he has a bad game, but like if you're in game 3 and he's had 2 terrible performances, at least you're not going to dismiss and be like, hey, Casey, you're really going to turn this thing around. Why don't you hop in there? Like, that's more of a guys, let's pick it up kind of move. Kind of like when you pull your goalie in a bad game. It's like, it's not the goalie's fault all the time. It's just like the coach trying to be like, guys, you're really like playing terribly in front of our goalie right now. You really need to start picking it up. So,
the Penguins do have a history of pulling out a goalie that's done all the work for the sake of the playoffs. I mean, talk about Marc-Andre Fleury there, but I have a list of goaltenders I have on the 100 names 2-on-1 podcast trade bait board. You just give me a yes or no. We talked about Marc-Andre Fleury. Semyon Varlamov?
No, I don't think he's at this point. I mean, he's fine. He hasn't played enough this year for me. Hope he's been playing consistently and he'd be a better backup.
Antoine Forsberg.
Not the caliber goalie I wanted. He's like, I would say he's around the level of DeSmith. He's playing a little bit over his head, but I think DeSmith's about the same level as he is.
James Reimer.
That's an interesting one. But if we want to, I know I'm supposed to talk about the Penguins, but I think the Leafs should go for him, honestly.
Oh, you're going to play with Alex's heart here.
So do I.
Not just because I think that it would be funny to have him go back to Leafs. I also think that, well, he's injured now, so it's kind of tough. But I think he's just shown, especially even in Carolina last year, he was good last year. So it's not like a fluke year where he just happens to have a good year. Mm-hmm. So I think that, he's a good goalie. I don't think he's going to go to Pittsburgh. I wouldn't, honestly, if like I could get Reimer for a cheaper price at Holtby, I would be like, oh, I'm okay with that. I mean,
Peter Mrazek.
Well, if the Leafs trade Peter Mrazek, who's playing net for them?
Oh, this is for Pittsburgh.
I know, but like for the Leafs, who's playing net for?
I believe in Eric Hellgren.
Oh wow!
I don't
Someone
know.
has to.
This is the thing. It's like, the the Leafs are very good in the sense that they have a lot of prospects even still and on defensive forward. But when a goalie guy like me doesn't even know a single one of your prospects besides Joseph Wool, and I guess Ian Scott, but he's playing in the ECHL right now, and I don't think he's NHL ready, then you can't trade Mrazek. You can't put one of those guys into a scenario where they're just going to drown. Like it's literally like throwing a baby into like the ocean.
Yeah,
it's
you can't trade him without getting something back.
And also the cap.
Like
I'm thinking the Penguins
goalie.
cap situation, and then Mrazek.
Yeah, that's also the big part. He's getting paid, what is it, like $3.5 million this year?
Yeah.
You guys aren't letting me have any fun here.
I'm so sorry.
I'll give you two more names here. We'll just skip over Mike Smith, shall we? Jonas Korpisalo.
Jonas Korpisalo. He's still young, which makes it interesting.
Mhm.
But that's more of a long-term play. And I think the Penguins goalie long-term is Tristan Jarry. They made that clear when they traded Matt Murray, which also shout out Matt Murray. He's had a really good return to form since he went down to the AHL. So I want to give him a little plug here.
Good.
But yeah, I think they know who their goalie is. And I think this is also the thing. If we're looking long-term, we talked about this last podcast. They have 3 really good goalie prospects right now that are all going to need a spot to play next year. Because I know for a fact that Clegg is coming over from Europe next year to play somewhere in the Penguin system. So, I don't think adding a long-term goalie is really what they need right now.
Then how about, this will be the last goalie I'll throw at you, or it's going to be 2 of them. Either a Yaroslav Halak or a Martin Jones.
I wouldn't touch Martin Jones with a 10-foot pole. Yaroslav Halak is interesting. I think he's on a very steep decline right now, but I guess your logic is, in a backup role behind Jarry, if Jarry falters, he could be fine. And I mean, that's true, but I still think Holtby is better than all those goalies you just named because of all the reasons I said. I think he's their number one option. And the more that you keep on talking about goalies, I honestly would be willing to give up maybe more than a third for Holtby, depending on what the market's looking like.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more trade thing before we go to Sidney Crosby. Okay, because I want to say that there was one team scouting the Habs Seattle game last night, and I think it was actually Pittsburgh. So, I mean, the Penguins, they got a history of having a lot of injuries on the back end. Need a bit of grit, a bit of toughness. I mean, I think Ben Sherrod can work. I think.
So, man, I was waiting.
Okay,
I've been waiting for that. Can I just say I'm so happy that live on the podcast, I'm not the only one getting thrown Ben Sherrod trade requests.
Balmer got it too.
I'm so happy. Like today is my favorite.
Are you saying the market
day.
is hot for Ben Sherrod?
March 13th.
If Chikrin's down, they're Klingberg staying, but then the Stars, if Heiskanen's out too long with mono.
Also, that's a mistake. They should be trading Klingberg.
Yeah, I know. They're not going to win the game. But, the market could be some defensemen off the market. Big Ben Sherrod.
I think if you pay more than a 4th round pick for Ben Sherrod, you're sorely mistaken.
Then
and that's not the comment on him as being a terrible player, because as everyone knows, to be in the NHL, you have to be a good hockey player. But his best role is as a bottom pair defenseman. I'm sorry.
Listen,
Adam, look at me.
Yes.
He got carried by Shea Weber for a whole year. And now you want a 1st round pick for him?
Yo. Listen, I'm not the one asking.
Look at the analytics. It's objectively awful.
I'm just doing my part to campaign.
Terrible.
I'm just doing my part to campaign. He's a gritty. He's got leadership.
He is objectively awful. Have you seen his penalty numbers in the postseason? They go
Man,
up.
I don't need to look at them.
Penalties. His penalty numbers go up in the offseason.
I watched him, man. I know. But this is the real name I actually really wanted to ask.
The only reason
he's not done. He's not done.
The only reason he's number 10 on my list is because he's above 6'5" and could punch Brad Marchand if he wanted to fight Jarry again. That's the only reason he's on my list.
Ben Sherrod, I'm telling you, you guys just watch. Anyway, there's a real player.
Whoever trades for Ben Sherrod and it's higher than a 3rd or 4th round pick, fire your GM. Fire them. Fire them instantly. Fire them into the sun. Like, I don't know. Like, why are we doing here? Like, honestly, there's better defensemen. Call up Winnipeg. Winnipeg has a bunch of defensemen. I'd rather Justin Braun, honestly. Like, there's other people I can think of over Ben Sherratt. And plus, Pittsburgh has a solid top four right now anyways, and does not need Ben Sherratt.
You can straighten the third pair.
Yeah, for a 4th round pick.
All it's going to cost you is Samuel Poulin. Anyway, there is a natural Montreal player I wanted to ask you about.
The only good forward prospect we have.
They could have been asking, looking at Seattle, but I'm not going to go that route. If we can believe Hextall, and sorry to take it back to the wingers conversation, if you want a really good third liner who has control because he is an RFA, I wonder your opinion if the Penguins were calling under Churi Lehkonen.
That's interesting. Honestly, I was kind of hoping before the contract extension that they would kind of look at getting the can back.
Yeah.
Because I know they wanted to get something for him instead of just letting him go in the expansion draft. But honestly, a part of me would have wished they just kept on it and rolled the dice because of how bad that team was drafted, that maybe he wouldn't have gotten picked. You never know. Especially because they took Brandon Tanev instead, when other players objectively were the better choice, and which makes me think that they might have taken Brandon Tanev over him, which again, also thank you, Seattle. Like, if we had Brandon Tanev on our book for this offseason, we would not be able to sign everyone. Like, we would not be able to sign Malkin and Letang. So I got to give a shout out to Seattle Kraken. They're my new favorite West Coast team because they just saved our asses this offseason. So I really appreciate it. But yeah, I think our Lehkonen's a good piece. I think, like, let's be honest, guys. Like, third line guys are like, they're not like crazy. Like, there's like the difference between a third line guy on one team and a third line guy on another team is not a big difference. Honestly, a part of me was wondering if I heard something that they were kind of looking into Nick Ritchie, which was interesting. I don't know why they were looking into that.
So many Leafs legends.
Leaf legend Nick Ritchie, but personally, I think if I'm trading for a winger, I'm trading for Andrew Kopp because I think he fits well in the system. I think he can play a 200-foot game. I think he's a guy that I know the Penguins have had a pretty good penalty kill this year, but he could improve the penalty kill even more, whether that's even in the first or second group. And I think, it makes sense for Winnipeg to move on from him because they're not going to make the playoffs, in my opinion. And they should just get value where they can on their UFAs. So I'm going with Andrew Kopp as my pick for winger still.
Fair enough. Daniel, go ahead. I'll ask about Crosby a little later. I think Patrick needs to get some distance before I keep asking about Ben Sherratt. So go ahead, Dan.
You mean Curtis?
Yeah. What? Yeah. No, listen. We're all a little hot right now. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I feel bad for Alex. Alex has a lot of editing again this time.
No problem. he loves it. Yeah. So, on Daily Face-Off, Curtis, Frank Cervelli wrote, "This is starting to feel like the last dance for the Pittsburgh Penguins." So before we play Donna Summer, I'm just thinking, what is going on with the Chris Letang negotiations? We saw that he wants 5 years, $7 million AAV. What's that looking like for you? Do the Penguins do it?
It's tough because John Marino's kind of the next Chris Letang. I think he's shown that he could be that guy. I'm not saying that he'll be at the caliber of Chris Letang for his career, but I think he could step into that role of like a top line guy that could provide some offense, but also at the same time can play a little bit of a 200-foot game. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and say Chris Letang has a 200-foot game. I think, he's more on the offensive side of things. I think he can make defensive plays. He has, but it's tough. It's tough. Like, because a part of you is like, well, why don't we just start this thing all over again? Because, we're at the point where, you're giving Letang that 5-year contract, you're putting him well into his 30s. Same with Malkin. And then, Malkin and Crosby, if you're giving them 5-year deals, they're almost going to be in their 40s at that point. Close to it. So I guess it just depends on what your mindset is do you want to hold on to what you have now and hope that these players are the elite players, or even arguably Hall of Fame players that all three of them are, and will not drop off significantly until the last 2 years of those contracts, you could argue. I think the fact that Tang has stayed healthy the last 2 years makes me lean more to I'd want to sign that contract than in past years. If he still had injury problems the last 2 years, I would have, highly warned against signing that contract because he would have just been injured most of the time. So, and we've seen what kind of player he is when he's healthy. He's an elite defenseman. I think he's one of the more underrated defensemen in the NHL, to be honest. So, I mean, Adam's going to like this, but I think if he doesn't sign with Pittsburgh, he's going to go to Montreal. It's just kind of the easy connection. If he's not going to sign with Pittsburgh, he wants to go home.
Can't use, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
If he signs a 5-year deal, he will be 40 years old.
Yeah.
By the end.
35th birthday is in 6 weeks.
Oh boy. Him and Bergeron, they're both signing long-term in Montreal, and they're going to be screwed anyway. Some numbers, by the way.
Honestly, I wonder, and I know that this isn't done in hockey enough. I wonder if Sid goes to Malkin and Letang is like, guys, sign a 1-year deal for like $7 million or something. Let's get one more shot of the can. And then after that, we can go wherever we want. I'm going to stick it out here. You do what you want to do. We already have our cups. Why not try to get one more cup in Pittsburgh? That's kind of like what Jordan was trying to do before the team was broken up by Jerry Reinsdorf in Chicago. He was like, all right, guys, let's just come back, sign a 1-year deal. Let's just keep on doing it until we can't do it anymore. But I also get why that doesn't make sense for Letang, because he wants another big paycheck. And he wants stability. And if he breaks his leg next year and he's on a 1-year deal, well, then there goes all that money. So I get it. But I think, if somebody would be able to convince him, it would be Crosby. I don't know if Crosby is the guy that would actually intervene with that, but I don't know if I sign him. And it's tough because he's been a great player for us. But, it's going to be an interesting Penguins team next year. I think I've been trying to focus on this season, but it could look very different.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Not. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to know for you, because if Letang does walk, and if we're going to use again the Last Dance reference, so are you feeling this is the 97 Bulls, the 98 Bulls? Because what's a number you're comfortable with keeping Evgeny Malkin?
I think whatever he wants, you give it to him. Personally, I think you keep him around as long as you can. And I think that's because he's never been a fast player, so age is not going to affect that. Hands don't go with age either. Neither does, maybe, seeing the ice a little bit, but with the elite players always can see the ice no matter what age they are. So Malkin isn't going to be affected as hard as someone like Letang, who focuses on, speed and agility and all those things. Malkin's never been that. Somebody said that, I think I heard one writer a long time ago refer to Malkin as like the bear of the NHL. Like he's not like fast, but if you get in his grasp, like you better watch out. Like if you give him that opportunity, he's going to take that opportunity and score. And like, look at Ovi. Like we're in an age where like people can play until they're like 37 and still be good NHL players. Even if Malkin was like, I don't know, like maybe like the equivalent of like a third line winger towards the last couple of years of his deal, center. Am I really upset at that? I don't know. Like, it's also like we don't have a lot of kids that he's taking up their spot either. Like, it's not like our pipeline's deep with young forwards that are coming up to try to get a spot either. So I think, the big mistake of all the bad rebuilds is them tire firing every person and then just starting with scorched earth. And I think when you have a guy like Malkin and Crosby, you kind of have to keep that leadership group around, at least to bridge the gap between their era and the next era. Will that next era be as good as this era? I mean, it'll be hard to compete because they had a pretty good era, but I guess only time can tell.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to Sidney Crosby, who still is and will continue to be the centerpiece of this team moving forward, no matter what they do, I just want to know your thoughts on Brian Rust and what you see him going into the future.
See, I think this is the reason why you try to get rid of Kasperi Kapanen, because Kapanen's money should be going to Brian Rust. Brian Rust has been and will be one of the more important pieces of this Penguins roster for multiple reasons. One, he's one of the few guys that has successfully played with Crosby and Malkin and on the third line in his career. You can plug him in on the top three lines, which, some people could be like, oh, well, that's just a third liner that can stick with Sidney Crosby. Well, find me another third line winger that can stick with Sidney Crosby and also be placed on the third line. Can't think of many other people. He's kind of him and Connor Sheary to a degree when he was with the Penguins are that kind of mold where it's like, you know what? We can bring up our level to play with the top players and we can keep that level on the third line and add another weapon. Now, if you want $7 million, I'm going to be like, okay, chill out here. Like, let's talk about this, but I don't think he's going to want that much money. So I think that he's one of the more important signings. I think, Letang obviously is important, but I'd argue he's more important because he's more important to this forward group, which is the identity of the Penguins.
Adam, go ahead.
I just want to quickly read 3 different stat lines here before I go to Sidney Crosby, just to put in perspective. Beside the 3 cups, 632 points in 918 games for Chris Letang. 434 goals, 1,128 points in 963 games played for Malkin. How weird is it that those two haven't played 1,000 games? Crosby has. Isn't that kind of weird when you think about it? In 1,086 games, Sidney Crosby, 505 goals, 1,382 points. He's point per game in every single season. 47 games, 19 goals, 57 points. Sidney Crosby. The hard conversation, Curtis, as you know, who's somebody who lives in Toronto, has been dominated by Austin Matthews to many people. Others should be looking at the goaltender who's putting up historic numbers in Igor Shesterkin. I've lobbied for Cale Makar, how good he's been. McDavid's obviously McDavid. And I had this discussion with the guys last week that maybe we handed the torch away from Sid to McDavid maybe a little too quickly. You look at what Crosby's done since he's come back from injury or just his entire career. Where do you, as a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, see Sidney Crosby in the hierarchy of the league right now? And should he be in the Hart conversation this year? Even though he should probably, I don't know how many he has off the top of my head, but he should probably have more than he has, to be honest.
It's a good question. I don't think he should be in the Hart conversation. I think the young guys are that good now. I think, first of all, I think it's Austin Matthews hard to lose at this point. I think he's going to smash a bunch of records. He's scoring at a better goals per game clip than Ovechkin did at his hottest point of his career. I'm pretty sure I saw. So how do you not give him the Hart, especially when the Leafs are one of the best teams in the NHL? And I'd argue the Islanders and Shesterkin are kind of not floundering, but they're kind of just starting to tail off as the season goes on. Not saying that Shesterkin isn't a good goalie. He's going to win the Vezina. I don't think it's a question, but I just personally think that it's weird, right? Because I think someone said it, like, Crosby isn't a sexy player. Like, he's not McDavid where I'm going to dangle through 10 guys and put a top corner. I think Crosby's still a top 8 player in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Considering his age, I think that's impressive. I think that we'd have a different conversation if he didn't have his concussion issues. I think he would still be one of the top players. I think he would even be higher up on people's all-time, not even just in the league right now, all-time rankings if, we didn't have that dirty hit in the outdoor game that caused him to miss basically the most part of 2 seasons of his career.
Was that David Steckel?
It was David Steckel.
Of course.
But we can't talk though, because also on the ice that day was Matt Cook. So we cannot.
I'm surprised anyone got off the ice that day.
I cannot comment on dirty players, but I don't know. I just think that Crosby's still he's not underrated, but he's underrated when it comes to the top players, if you know what I mean.
I want you guys to guess. I'll go through each of you one at a time, starting with Curtis. Guess how many Hart trophies Sidney Crosby has?
I don't know if he has one. I think he has 1.
Daniel?
2.
Alex?
I know the answer. I looked it up when Curtis asked.
Okay.
So
How in the world does Sidney Crosby only have 2 Hart trophies?
Honestly,
2 What?
It's because, like I said, he's just that, he does everything kind of player.
That's
He plays a 200-foot game. He can put up a point a game. That's why, if any prospect gets the Sidney Crosby comparison, they should be, happy with that, because that means that you're not just a flashy player. It means that you can also play the puck on the defensive side. It means you can strip the puck. I think, a big storyline over the last, I want to say 4 years now has been Mark Stone's ability to create takeaways. And I think Crosby's up there too, and his ability to create takeaways in the ice. So, I mean, I don't know if he really needs the hearts though. I feel like in his mind, the cups are all that matter to him. I think, when him and Ovi eventually get inducted into the same Hall of Fame class, I think he's going to show up with all of his rings on his fingers just to show him off to Ovi, being like, you know what? You want to know why I'm the better player? Right here, rings.
You know what? I actually want to look up how many Hart trophies Ovechkin has, because he must have one at least. Can you imagine that? You know how how Shaq always gets upset because he's like, Steve Nash won 2 MVPs that I should have won. So Sidney, just I'm curious about.
Oh, okay.
Ovechkin has more hearts. He has 3. What?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's 3.
That's insane.
Also, going back to that basketball reference, Steve Nash deserved every one of those MVPs.
I believe as well. Yes.
He literally revolutionized the game of basketball.
You've seen the clip where he's like, Ernie Johnson's like, I have a vote, and he's like, the 2 times Steve Nash beat me, you voted for him? I did. I love it. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on, Curtis. Always appreciate having you on. Pittsburgh, an interesting team. I'm telling you, Ben Sherratt or Sam Polana, first happening is coming. When we come back,
Curtis is never coming on again.
Listen,
I'm going to get a text message. I am never coming on the podcast again.
Forget the text. I think
No. Don't worry, guys. I love the show. I'll definitely be back on. I just, in my contract, you have to put the clause no Ben Sherratt talk. And
wait, we can do that?
No, if Alex doesn't get that,
we're allowed. Wait, we're allowed to put
anyway,
that.
Curtis, go away and you can. No, sorry, not go away. Go ahead and plug your Twitter and all that, where people can find you.
Right. You know what? I'll plug what I've been working on a little bit before the Twitter. I just did a podcast. I have my own podcast called the Blue Jays Way podcast, and luckily baseball is back, so that'll be really firing up and kicking into gear. And to kick things off this season, we had a great interview with Jeff Blair, which is live as we're recording this right now. So when you're hearing this, you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just type in the Blue Jays Way podcast. Hopefully by then the YouTube video will be up as well, and we'll have some clips up depending on my schedule. But and then you can find me on Twitter at cmartin387. You can find me on Instagram at cmartin2292. And I have a photography account because I'm a photographer. You can follow that at Curtis Martin Photography.
Perfect.
And that's it.
All right. When we come back, we are going to look at Leafs goaltending. What else? Rasmus Ristolainen's extension. Jesperi Kotkaniemi's extension. Jack Eichel's return to Buffalo. Some Women's League stuff, some Chikrin stuff. The Leafs game, we're going to preview that. The Habs have back-to-back honest losses you need for the tank and all that. And maybe we'll have a conversation about Ben Sherratt, just for the sake of it for Alex's.
Awesome.
We will be back in a moment. So I have to hold back my laughter because Curtis just left. He wasn't happy with me. And Ben Sherratt. Great guy, honestly. I love Alex. I love Curtis. Thank you both for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, okay. I'll see you guys next week.
Hopefully, all right. Well, Daniel, we'll keep going. Hopefully, Curtis actually comes back on, and I didn't just push it too hard with Ben Sherratt, but it had to happen. It had to happen anyway. Hopefully he's a Pittsburgh Penguin or a Pittsburgh Penguin. Anyone. I want it to happen. Okay, guys.
I want him to be a Ranger.
I want him to be a Ranger.
Yeah, and then Mike just loses it like a volcano in I don't know, Spain. They have volcanoes.
Kako in the first.
Kako. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll take it. Okay, let's look around the NHL. How about we talk about refereeing to start? Officiating. We have 3 wild cases over the past week. There was the incident with Nazem Kadri that Gabriel Landeskog took exception to, his reputation, the inconsistencies that TJ Luxmore and excuse the dog, and who's the other guy? Wes McCauley had. There was the Arizona incident when Matthews' stick was held by Jacob Chikrin. No call. Chikrin goes the other way and scores. And then there was the stuff with Hyman getting hooked by Ovechkin with the most blatant hook you've ever seen. It took this long to have a real bad discussion about officiating. We've had it, but this is the explosive point of the season, and I'm impressed it happened this close to the trade deadline, guys.
I know. We could have, right? We could have done we could have done a weekly
Remember
segment.
Read of the bye week?
The what?
Remember Read of the bye week we used to do? Instead, it would have been the blown call of the week.
Oh, I love this league.
He said calmly, but
Yes.
inside his head was screaming. But they were all bad calls.
I saw the Ovechkin one, and I was ready to lose it.
Yeah.
I saw them, I saw all of them, but I was ready to lose it on the Ovechkin one. Like what blatant missed call. But you know what? Why do we talk about all of them first before I lose it and say it's science or whatever?
Well, the Ovechkin one was just as the clearest thing you've ever seen. Landeskog had comments that were very smart. It doesn't look like he's been fined because, he complimented, the refs did a good job for 50 minutes. I would read the paragraph, but I am really bad at reading, so we're not going to do that. We should have gotten the audio for it, but that whole thing was the reputation of Nazem Kadri because the Niederreiter penalty was, okay, he thought the guy dove, but when Nino himself, what Colorado thought dove, there was still technically, the ref said, well, there was still the infraction, but it wasn't the same for Kadri. So it's another example of the inconsistencies. And I think, Daniel, really it feels like referees have each linesman, each rep have their own set of rules. It's just so inconsistent.
Yeah, you can't really, gauge on, what's going to happen and what's fair. And to see what was going on, like Alex really took the word that I was going to use about how blatant it was for some of these plays to happen and a lot of non-calls going on. And I believe it was that one stat right now where it was with, I cannot remember the source, but it was like Colorado are like number one with the drawing penalties. And
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just we've talked about this so many times before about the consistency of what was going on. And I think, we were talking about Colorado, but if I've been talking about like the Leafs game right now, like to have a non-call in such a crucial situation like that as well in overtime is just, to me, it's just, I don't know, like that hold was really, really blatant. And that was something that, it's not like it happened away from the play. You know what I mean? Like it was right there with the lines. Yeah.
So the Capitals Oilers won. The Caps got a point out of it. Luckily, Edmonton won. The one involving Colorado was just sort of it really gave. It was a close game the whole time, but score wise, so it sort of it really caused the momentum. Yeah. It was like late in the game, so Colorado didn't have a shot. I don't have a problem because I know people have pointed out, for example, the Leafs are really low when it comes to drawing penalties, which they probably should be a lot higher because of the way they play. If Colorado draw the most penalties, I would actually agree. Like, that sounds right because they always have the puck. But then it's like, okay, but Kadri's the one guy we're going to go after. If we can focus on the Toronto one here, Alex, because let's just make it out the way first and foremost. Should Matthews have given up on the play? No, but I don't blame him because I'd be pretty mad in that scenario too. Should they have been in the position? No, but that doesn't make the refs sort of cock up any worse. Sorry, any better. It was still a blown call.
Yeah, it's like two things can be true. Like, I think I was talking about this last episode too. Like, why can only one thing be true? Like, yes, Matthews should have come back on the play, but even if Toronto won, in my opinion, this would still be a discussion that should be had where it was a missed call like that. We saw another missed call in Edmonton, and then we saw the shenanigans that went on with Landeskog. So I don't really, or with Kadri, sorry. So I don't really again, they missed the call. I don't know if you guys caught 32 Thoughts. I think it was the one on Friday. I'm not a fan of this it is what it is approach. Like, I get the point that Friedman and Merrick were trying to make, and, it's the NHL, they're not going to change. But I just, it was so blatant, and there were three different scenarios within a span of 2 days. And I think especially the Landeskog comment where we're talking about Kadri, that's a very very hard topic, because we're talking about referees not making calls because of the reputation of players. That's how, how are you, why is that even a conversation?
Here's what's really worrying too, is if we look at it right now, the Capitals they're 3 points behind Boston, right? Boston have a game in hand, but giving them an extra point could really bite the wild card standings and their opponents, right? If we look at the other side, Colorado's obviously running away with it, so it's a little different. Same with Carolina and Colorado are pretty set in their ways, but Edmonton right now, if you look at it, they're in a playoff spot because, oh goodness gracious, are Vegas falling? But if you had cost them a point, then how much different is their season with how tight the West wild card's third spot in the Pacific race really is right now? And you can't have officials being the reason that, these places are being affected. And even to Toronto's extent, right now they're in a bitter dogfight with the Panthers to try and get second in the Tampa and Toronto to try and get second in the Atlantic.
And Boston's creeping up behind them. Game in hand there. I think they're 2 points back. And Toronto has a game in hand on them. So the discussion's always, how do we not have the referees affect the game? No matter what they do, they're going to affect the game. Well, I don't know why that's so difficult to understand. That if they don't make the call, they're affecting the game by not making the call. By making the right call, they're affecting the game by making the right call.
Just please make the right call.
Just make the right call.
Yeah.
I think Merrick brought up the example of Shabbat at the end of the game, the penalty against Shabbat at the end of the game against, I believe it was Ottawa versus Edmonton. If that is tripping, then that is tripping. It could be 5 seconds left on the clock. It could be 19 minutes left on the clock. Is it or is it not tripping? Make the decision, and that's how we'll move forward. By not making calls at certain times, you are inadvertently affecting the outcome of the game. I don't know why that's so hard to understand.
There are so many different, sort of you can see, I guess, pet peeves in hockey officiating. My big one is when you call the guy for embellishment and you also call the guy who committed the foul. Okay, then which is it? You know what I mean? I don't like the idea of both going off. Or if somebody punches a dude in the face and then somebody punches back, the guy who punches back is the one who goes in. I don't know I think, Alex, you may have seen this. I think it was in the second period of the Habs game last night when Josh Anderson got flooded by Seattle players and he was the one sent to the box and it was a power play straight up. Yeah. And you're like, excuse me? There's just inconsistencies there. And we don't need to talk about Brendan Gallagher's reputation with refs and how that's cost Montreal in the past, but it's just it's never simple with NHL refs. And I don't like Friedman and Merrick saying it is what it is. That's
a very hockey answer, though.
You are two very, very important, influential, members of the media. You are. Friedman's the insider, to be honest. That's what he is. And Merrick has talked about the thing of, if you want the rules called properly, he talks about this side of the ice for icings and that. No, that's different. That's different than roughing and holding a stick. That's just, there is nothing more blatant than holding a stick. There's something's not right here.
In Canada, I'd argue, and I think there's a good argument for it. They probably are two of the most influential people in hockey media in Canada.
The hockey podcast, 32 Thoughts. It's that big. So that's disappointing from them.
A little bit. Yeah.
They've had other stuff this year when you've been much more severe stuff, and the stuff they have chosen to cover and they haven't, I'll personally say. I won't go more into it, but I think we all know when they were called out for not covering as much with Kyle Beach and John Doe too. I don't think they ever covered what happened with the loss, like with the settlement. So, I love those guys. I have a lot of respect for. They're the reason this podcast exists. But
Literally.
just saying like, that's how it is. That's not good enough. I don't like it, especially this time of the year when one loss or one win can determine your entire plans for the deadline. It is too high stakes. And then we know what's going to happen in the playoffs. And don't give me flashbacks to freaking Chris Lee. And it's goodness gracious. If we look at from here, I mean, we already mentioned Gabriel Landeskog for a second, so I think we can just sort of quickly note he is out indefinitely with knee surgery, which is a shame. What a great year he was having. And Sam Girard is out 4 weeks. All I can find is there's a lower body injury. I don't know if they've had the specifics quite out yet for that. So let's say Landeskog's out for the entirety of the regular season. What's that, like $7 or $8 million? I can't remember his cap hit. But that opens up some room for Colorado at the deadline, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It does, and that's why Claude Giroux will be a Colorado Avalanche.
It'll probably be next year's first round pick because they already gave it away for Darcy Kemper.
Yeah.
I wonder if they can be really silly. That if they have enough room, you get Chicago to retain on Fleury. And I know they just extended Francouz, but they could get really nutsy. We know this is the all-in year for Colorado.
Yeah.
So
right.
Get nuts. Get more than Giroux. Get Sherratt. Get like.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like I think I like the word Elliot Friedman uses sometimes when he talks about deadlines. So a GM's war chest. And for me, I know that I mentioned the first round pick, but I'm looking at Colorado right now, and as good as they've been, they still have so much forward depth that they could trade away. Just the accumulation over the years. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you see a Martin Kaut being part of it, or a Shane Bowers, or an Alex Newhook. All these guys.
Comfer, Alex.
JT Comfer, yes. And I think those are the type of guys that when we mentioned with Alex Baumgartner that there's an Owen Tippett factor there, but I think with Colorado they also have a bunch of these other possibilities that they could add if this is truly the all-in year for them.
On 32 Thoughts headlines, Friedman mentioned that for Marc-Andre Fleury right now, the team wherever he goes to, it's not just about his protection list, but it's him going to a place where he believes he can win. Also, I want to say on insider trading, Pierre LeBrun said that the Leafs have looked into him and the goalie market. He did say it was more of a due diligence call. They did say apparently Toronto's not on his preferred list, which I'm kind of like, why report it? But maybe that can change. They're a good team. And I know Dubas has kind of been like, we're not looking. We're looking at defense. Alex, would you say for the Leafs, Marc-Andre Fleury is a realistic option? Is he one they should be looking at? Or are you still, all those assets, that cap space needs to go to a defenseman?
I think if we're looking at the goaltender market, sorry, he is the only goaltender I'd go after.
Wow.
You don't want me to get to the 100 names trade bait board and read the goalies for the third time?
I mean, you're more than you're more than welcome to, but I really think unless you're going to be able to move Petr Mrazek and bring in one of those guys, there's no real need for any of those other goalies other than Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't think it's worth the assets, considering that you cannot go out and spend those assets on a defenseman.
By the way, Washington, he's still not interested in going. Oh, they need to take a hit.
Of course.
It is not happening at all. Goodness gracious, where's we go? This is from Darren Dreger. Buffalo are apparently looking for a top-end, high-character partner to play with Owen Power. If not at the deadline, that's going to be a free agency type thing.
I bet they wish they still had Rasmus Ristolainen.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Sorry.
We will get to that. We will get to that because I'm actually happy for Risto, but we'll talk about that a little later. Beside the money thing, obvious. But anyway, I wonder, does that mean... Would it mean you would have to do a lot of convincing to this player? A lot. But goodness gracious, does it not make sense for you? Like, imagine Owen Power and Hampus Lindholm? Or Owen Power. Hear me out. What do we know about Owen Power? He's got the great scaling ability, right-handed, so we need a left-handed partner.
Is he right-handed?
He's right-handed, yeah.
Yeah. Needs a grit grinder.
6'5" too, right? Yeah.
A nice grit grinder leadership. Anyway, no, Ben's not high end, but I'm wondering if there's any, like, can you guys think of any, like, thingy defenseman, ideally left-handed? Like,
he's left-handed. Owen Power is left-handed.
Oh, he's left-handed. Sorry.
Oh, so okay, Lindholm, right-handed. I mean, I don't see him going to.
No, Lindholm's
Lindholm's also left-handed.
Josh Manson.
So, that's not the worst idea.
There's history there because Brandon Montour, right-handed, went from the Ducks to the Sabres. So maybe.
I know this would be real, like, probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But, like, I kind of just thought of John Klingberg. Wow. I know that would be a weird pairing because I think Owen Power's a little more offensive minded as well, but, like, still, why not?
That'd be interesting. Depending on where the Sabres see themselves in the window or when they're actually going to compete again. That'd be an interesting one.
You want Jeff Petrie? You got term? Got term? I mean, it's basically the same as Klingberg, but Klingberg's probably going to want like 7-8 years. So if he can't get 8 on the open market, can he?
I mean, it would make sense. Buffalo's one of the only teams that could give him that money.
Exactly. And Chris Johnson mentioned that it looks like it's confirmed that the draft is taking place in Montreal. Suck it, Bettman. So
we'll see Adam's live coverage from there for the podcast.
Indeed. Very excited. The standards of top three.
When the top pick is made, for some reason, Adam also walks up.
When is the draft?
I actually have no idea. I want to say it's July this year. Because everything got
yeah, that's a good point. I kind of want to make it out if I have the time.
We should go.
Yeah. Anyway, we should.
How are tickets usually for a draft though? Like,
I don't know. I've never looked at them.
No. Okay, Alex.
We'll work on it.
We'll look into it. Adam already has his way there. We'll find our way there.
We'll work on it. The timing works out.
I might be able to get the tickets if you guys can organize your way of getting
accommodations there. Or getting there. Well, getting there is easy. It's just the accommodations we got to think about.
We'll figure it out.
I could probably have that figured out.
Okay.
My mom would be there too, so that might be a little thing. She can record the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll like do audio bites.
If we lose the draft lottery.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I got my lava mic. I'll just bring it over and like, I don't know. You know what I'm usually okay, I know this is off. We're going off topic here, but you know, usually for playoffs, they invite teams invite certain people to do blogs for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll invite your mom to do a blog for us on the draft coverage.
I mean, she just
behind the scenes of the 2-on-1 podcast.
Indeed. Okay. Eichel returned to Buffalo. They were. I was surprised there was that much booing. To be honest, I thought there would be
some jeers.
Yeah, there was cheers, and don't get it wrong, but it was a bad game for Vegas. They're just bad right now to begin with, which is kind of funny. But let's just quickly have a little look-see. I have some Jack Eichel quotes.
Oh, he had some things to say.
First, he said, "That's the loudest I've heard this place." This is in the post game. That's the loudest I've heard this place in ever. It only took 7 years and me leaving for them to get into the game. He also then said, they must be booing me because they wish I was still here.
That's swagger.
Now, he did not get a video tribute from the team. It was from like the community. I guess he did some charity work. That was a messy divorce. Now, there's been a bit of a split on this. So people may not remember, but there was a sit-down interview that Friedman actually did with Jack Eichel. And in that interview, it kind of went under the radar that Eichel, before the neck thing, actually requested a trade from Buffalo. He phrased it as, well, if you're rebuilding, you could trade me and get some good assets, which probably means you should trade me. I don't want to be here. And he's trying to sell it. And I don't think he's that clever. So what I kind of see that as is that it's another element. I don't think it's wrong if you boo him for that. I don't think the fans of Buffalo were booing him because he wanted to get neck surgery.
No.
But I understand why. First off, this is great theater. I think we can all agree this is amazing stuff. This is good for the sport.
Yeah.
But I don't blame Buffalo for booing him like I don't blame Islanders fans for booing John Tavares.
No, I don't.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did they not do it for Jesperi Kotkaniemi?
They destroyed him.
Yeah,
right. Like, and he actually put pen to he signed that contract, right? So, like, Jack Eichel essentially did the same thing here. He essentially said, "I do not want to play here," and I don't understand like why people are missing. Like, are people not aware that he requested a trade, or are they being blissfully ignorant and not mentioning he asked for a trade a full calendar year before requiring neck surgery? Like, he asked for a trade. You're going to get booed. Like, they picked him second overall. He signed an 8-year contract extension, the same time that McDavid did, right? 8 years. They both got 8 years around the same time.
I think it was a little later, but he got the big deal. And I think he left in like year 2 or 3.
I would do the same thing.
No, was the marriage sort of? Here's what, and I know people have been saying, and I wrote a piece about this to get into Ryerson about how it was a divorce since the start because Tim Murray didn't want him. Everyone knows that. Now, a lot of thing that Friedman mentioned on 32 Thoughts, the podcast once, was that apparently the way the Pagulas saw Eichel, it felt quite, it sounded very emotional, to be honest. Like, they really thought he was going to be the savior there. Like, correct me if I'm wrong here. You guys are going to know a bit more about this than me, but Ben Simmons in Philly got his big deal. And then like year 2, he wants out. Zion Williams is trying to get out of New Orleans. Like, it's nobody's business here. I don't like young players trying to force their way out because I don't think it's good for the sports at points.
Dirk Nowitzki, actually, he mentioned that recently, where he said when he would compare when he was signing his extensions or when he was coming into the league, it was a lot more of you just play and you just go with how things are going, and then he's just feeling now. But he didn't criticize anybody, but he was saying that there is just a lot more control now with what teams can do, or what players can do in terms of where they want to go and how they want to perceive the contract, even when it's signed.
When you sign up for an 8-year contract, the rebuild was going to be more than a couple of years. And like, listen, I know that he went through his whole ELC and that. But if you're signing on for that long and you're the captain, there's responsibility to that. I don't blame Eichel for wanting out at it. At the end of the day, the neck surgery is sort of, if it wasn't the biggest thing, it was the matchstick. It wasn't the first reason. It was Franz Ferdinand getting killed. That was what started everything. Certainly that's what started, but that was the matchstick event.
Right. You brought up the Pagulas there, and I believe there was a rumor going around that the Pagulas pushed for that contract.
Really?
No.
And people criticized it, I remember at the time. They're like, what's this about?
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily blame Jack Eichel for wanting to leave. Like, I don't think the organization treated him right in any respect. Like, before the neck surgery, let's cut it at around 2021. They did not treat him right at all. I think, like you guys said, they wanted McDavid. Everybody knew that. And of course, like, I'd be pissed if I'm this superstar talent who you can very much build a team around, and your first reaction was, I wish we had McDavid. Like, I understand. At the same time, I understand why the fans would boo. Like, the fans do not care about what's going on behind the scenes. We do, because that's what we talk about. But the average fan, I don't think, cares if Jack Eichel thought he was treated unfairly.
You know what I wonder about? is we know Jack Eichel's a big Hockey USA guy. We know the Pagulas are, obviously, they're NFL owners. They're very much the Team US. That there was that element of it. We have the American talent here. Tim Murray, we know, wanted McDavid, but I wonder if the Pagulas prefer Eichel. I mean, if they had McDavid, they'd probably be like, here we go. But you know what I mean? There was a pride thing there, I think. And listen, both sides are a little thingy here. And at the end of the day, Eichel's health for him is the most important thing. But I don't like criticizing the fans for doing. I don't like it. They didn't chant like broken neck at him or anything.
Yeah.
They just booed.
They didn't sign the Jeff Skinner contract.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. If you look at it, he liked Ralph Kruger. They kept him around.
Yeah.
They signed Jeff Skinner for him. Taylor Hall for him.
Eric Stahl.
Remember Eric Stahl. Congratulations to Mark for playing 1,000 games. The first brothers to all play. Love to see it.
Well, 3 out of the 4.
Yeah, we don't talk about
Jared.
Jared's whatever. He played eventually, but you know what I mean. It's just they tried to help him. Were they great at it? No. And he runs out of patience. Okay, Jack, you still have to accept that the fans are going to boo you. It's part of the game. It's part of the game. It's not like tennis where heckling may be seen a little different. You guys explained that situation to me.
Yeah.
But in the NHL, man, you're going to get booed.
It happens.
Look at John Tavares. It happens, man.
Must I say though, this is the first time I was watching the post game and I'm like, wow, this is not an NBA post game or you know what I'm talking about? The way he kind of just answered things and he was out there with all of his answers.
It was great.
Well,
he could have just listen, it was a messy situation and we moved on forward, but he didn't. He doubled down on the booth.
Yeah. Well, I will say I'm not going to stop. I don't want to tell Jack Eichel to not say those things because again, it's great for us. It's great for the sport. Everyone's going to be talking about it. I'm gonna say I gotta disagree with Jack. That is the Sabres fan base is probably I remember they always talk about the TV ratings, even with Buffalo not in the playoff race or in the playoffs, they're still one of the top markets in the US. So I will respectfully disagree with Jack Eichel.
I disagree with that part too. I know a lot of people were reacting to that one on Twitter too, where some people were just joking or he's spreading misinformation. It's fake news.
I think he was just better, right?
Exactly.
It's been bad.
No, I'm not going to tell him not to say it.
The enthusiasm in Buffalo, it's amazing. Even when it wasn't at the best, there's still the rowdy crowds. People are still coming out. Maybe we'll have Will Christopoulos on sometime, and he'll mention it as well too. That the fan base to that, they still believe in Casey Middlestat.
So I wonder too he talked about the whole thing of it's never been that loud in 7 years. Yeah, fair enough. They haven't had anything to cheer for. It's been so bad in Buffalo. They didn't even have they weren't 100. They didn't sell out that game, which was kind of funny. But I think you also have to imagine Sabres fans this year are really airing their grievances to the team. That's why their attendance has been so garbage. Maybe they're a little high strung too right now, which I get. I think right now, Leafs fans have been so on about the officiating. I don't blame them because, right now they have a goaltender who can't stop a beach ball. And it's and then it's that happens with Matthews. Fan bases can get high strung. Yes, Eddie Habs fan a couple months ago before Mary St. Louis, they didn't want to talk to anyone about hockey. And you guys know that because I hated it. Rasmus Ristolainen got a new contract. Chuck Fletcher is back at it, guys. He took a pay cut, though. What a great guy. So here's the new deal. Yeah, he goes from 5.4 to 5.1. It's a 5-year extension kicking in next year. He is overpaid. Yeah. And we'll criticize Chuck Fletcher in the second year. I just want to say one thing, though. Rasmus Ristolainen had a really rough time in Buffalo.
You don't say.
And now in Philly, and we all know that Ristolainen was in trade rumors every year in Buffalo
Since he was drafted,
since he was drafted. And I just want to see, apparently they like him. He likes it there. The teammates like him. Before, and I feel like people forget about this with him because they just talk about how awful his advanced numbers are. And he can put up points, which is, there's value in that. You just got to write. Like in Carolina, I bet he'd be great. In Carolina, right? It would just work out. Yeah. I am happy for Rasmus Ristolainen, the person, that he seems to have found a place that want him. And, you just got like $25 million out of what? But I just wanted to say I'm happy for Ristolainen, the person. Now, the Flyers. Apparently, the result of this is that Travis Sanheim may be available.
Kyle Dubas.
Ivan Provorov may be available. They should get a king's ransom for Travis Sanheim, by the way.
Do you know the, I think it was 2 years ago, the draft before the 2019 draft, where there's the picture of Kyle Dubas with two phones?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I use that every year for the deadline.
He has Chuck Fletcher on both of them right now. He better have Chuck Fletcher on both of them.
Where are the Flyers going? Where? Like, no offense, but instead of Sanheim moving, should you not have moved to Ristolainen? I feel like we went the wrong way.
Well, I wonder if this is pure speculation, but I wonder if at some point they realize that they can get nowhere near the price they paid for and said, well, I guess we're going to keep him because we paid a first, a second, and was it Robert Haig, I believe?
Yes.
To bring in Rasmus Ristolainen, and said, I guess we can't let him walk for free.
Would you like to know the Flyers 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60?
Sure.
It is 2.885, and that is the second worst in the league. Jay Fresh just posted it, actually.
Who's worse than them?
Columbus.
Were they? I was going to say Arizona.
Which is strange. Arizona are 28th.
Okay.
Because they're doing well. Shout out to the Rangers at 24th.
Oh my lord.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's weird. That's weird. Okay.
Did you see I think it was Jay Fresh posted it yesterday. Igor Shesterkin has goals saved above expected, I think, at 40 goals.
That's insane. He's stupid good. He's actually stupid good. Okay, let's talk about Carolina.
All right.
It's not official yet, but it sounds like Miss Barry Kotkaniemi is having an 8-year extension.
Wait, wait a second. The thing that we all said was going to happen happened.
It sounds like the AAV is going to be just short of $5 million. Different numbers are being leaked out there. Very similar to the Dvorak contract. Can't wait to see the signing bonuses in them.
It's an odd contract.
It is.
Being honest, it's very, very odd.
I thought of the Jerry Krause. I wouldn't sign this of RE to Scottie Pippen. I'm not saying KK is going to be Scottie Pippen, but it's like I'm like it's very much it's long-term security for a guy. And I'm not doing the math, but it's millions of dollars. He'll never have to work again after it. But it's like it's a very safe bet for him. And if it works out for Carolina, I will rip Mark Bergevin's heart out his chest.
I remember Dom Luszczyszyn, he was talking about that. At the moment, based on what he's seen, KK's not at the production of where he should be in terms of the money. But again, it's in terms of age, in terms of how he's played on the defensive end. It's just kind of banking on it, right? Just banking on that this becomes a bargain later on.
His usage has also been limited. Well, here's what's going to happen is Trocheck will be gone next year. I had to look at their cap friendly. Trocheck will be gone. KK will be solidified third line center behind Stahl, behind Aho. He'll be second line center once Aho leaves and comes to Montreal, obviously.
Oh, they're going to say Stahl. Okay, but yeah, go
Where
on.
it works out, Aho and eventually once Stahl sort of tapers off, Kotkaniemi develops into a second line center making less than $5 million until he's freaking 30. His best years.
Sorry, Alex, what were you going to say?
No, I want to double check something first. Because I know they also have Martin Nakash. I'm just not sure if he's a center. Because I know he's technically he can play center. I'm just not sure if
In NHL 22,
he's
I
not.
think he's listed as a right winger.
Yeah, no,
Kings
he's
better
not.
offer sheet him. The Kings better offer sheet him.
Martin Nakash.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
That would be
Get
interesting.
the attention away from us.
Hashtag the Bergman effect.
You know, what a loser. Yeah.
So,
but-
like, just an update, I guess, Adam, on what's going on right now in terms of the pick situation. So that, I guess, what it is, it's Carolina's pick that's going to be going to Arizona in the Dvorak trade, or no?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Montreal one's top 10 protected.
Okay.
Smart.
Double check. I'm pretty sure it is.
That might be Mark Bergman's best move.
Yeah. God, he sucked.
Oh.
Talk about the one time he made a panic move. Yeah, it's top 10 protected. So it's going to be Carolina's. Thank goodness. Save them in the I hate it. I hate it so much.
I don't mind this deal at all, to be honest.
Yeah, no. It's gonna work out. It'll work out. Thanks, Carolina.
If there's a coach that will make something work out, it's Rod the Bod.
Yeah, congratulations. I can't wait for everyone to give that team so much credit, even though they signed a blatant racist and Tony DeAngelo. Yeah, how great. Woo. Yeah, Carolina is so great. You know, everyone forgot about that, didn't they? Yeah. Same regime and everything. Oh, Don Waddell's going to get all this. Oh, he did such a great job. Okay.
I just like to say I love Jacob Slavin.
I know, right? He's so
Yes.
awesome. And then he has to probably deal with Tony DeAngelo. Talk about dedication.
I saw Ray Ferraro tweet. Someone tweeted, Jacob Slavin is the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. And Ray Ferraro goes, if he isn't, then who is? And I'm like, exactly.
It's like him and Heiskanen are probably up there.
And Daniel, you'd be able to tell me better. Is Jonas Brodin still up there? I know he was a few years ago.
He was 2 years ago. The only thing is he's had a lot of injuries the last 2 years.
Right.
So he hasn't
Right.
been playing as consistently as we saw him before. When I
Right.
gave him the Fulton Reed Award, I believe in 2020.
So Chikrin is apparently on his way back to Arizona. He didn't finish the game last night. Next day or two, we should know what's more with that. Apparently, that's from like Craig Morgan, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see what happens because a lot of teams are going to be curious as to what happens there. If he's, John Klingberg is going to be off the market now. Chikrin may be off the market. It means two things: more value for Ben Sherrod, and more importantly, that could be more value for Hampus Lindholm.
Yeah.
Maybe the guy.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here,
Yeah.
but I just remember on Hot Stove when Merrick and Friedman said, there might be a possibility none of the big names move in the deadline.
No. Just imagine realistically if Ben Sherrod's the only big move. I don't want to imagine that's going to happen.
Again, we're
I don't
saying
want-
again, it's the opposite of the NBA where, there was the speculation and then literally everything happened plus more. And then with the NHL, we've been talking about the deadline for over a month.
It's awful. Okay. This is from 32 Thoughts last night. The PHWPA. Did I say it right that time?
Yeah.
Apparently have a new. This is from Merrick. Apparently have a new women's league coming, fully supported and funded. They had a call with the NHL apparently, but no details are public, and this will not be a part of the PHF either. So it looks like we're set to have a second women's league.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this because I saw when I heard the news, I was thinking about it, and I'm more and more becoming okay with two leagues, and I'll explain why. Because I think before I used to say I wasn't a fan of that, but I think right now the most important thing is that they're playing. Not that every 4 years or every July, or I'm not sure when the women's world is this year. I think this year it's in August, but we only talk about it once a year. The most important thing is that they're playing. Is it going to be, I guess, a little confusing? Sure. But I think the most important thing for the players and even more important for the sport is that they have all their players playing, because right now they don't.
I agree with that. I think that, we've mentioned it before that every time the playoffs roll around, we see how great the game is for the women's hockey. And it's always that conversation like, oh, we have to keep it going. We have to see what we can do with it. But I don't want it to be another thing where it's like, oh, we're going to talk about it again, the next Olympics, the next World Championships. I think we had enough of a momentum this year to keep it going. And I think one example is just that you keep shouting out people. I think in the most subtle sense too. When we talk about that collective effort, and one thing for me is just, I guess, as someone right now, they were just scrolling on Twitter. One example of that is like the Blue Jays, they're shouting out Sarah Nurse. They're shouting out like her accomplishments as well. Those are some of the things that have to be in place for these leagues to be successful. So when we get to the next Olympics, there's still going to be that conversation of we have to keep growing the game for the women's side of it, but it won't be a part where, okay, we have to keep starting from level one.
We know a lot of these the PWHPA stuff. The Penguins, because it was at PPG Bates Arena, they were a big part of it. Crosby was at the game and all that. You look at it and you start wondering, okay, and if the NHL do get involved with the PHWPA, I really do question how long the PHF will be around. I know they just increase their salary cap and all that, but if they don't have support from the NHL and they have to go up against the best women's players in the world, I do question it. It feels like something. The timing is a very weird and all that. It's not weird. I think we kind of expected this actually post Olympics. Is we see what Anthony Stewart and Angela James getting involved with the Toronto Six and that. It feels like a matter of time now. It's a matter of time. I'll be honest, I'm pissed off seeing them split again. I want them all together so we can just enjoy women's hockey as one end of the year. I know people are like making the WHA comparisons. Cool. Just, it's going to happen eventually. So, if you want to keep wasting time and money and I go ahead, but
I think I disagree with you on the NHL stuff. Yes, they're going to be involved, or they might be involved with PWHPA. But the more I look at the NHL and the more I look at women's hockey, I don't know if I want the NHL involved. The NHL hasn't gotten something. The NHL hasn't gotten something right in years. In years, they haven't gotten anything right. And we already know, we're seeing the new personalities in, the Jack Hughes, the Trevor Zegrasses, but they've spent the last 20 years not marketing their own play. They barely marketed their own players right. Whereas when I look at the women's game, I think there's vastly huge amounts of personality in the women's game. And I don't know if I want the NHL touching that. If I'm being completely honest, because my first instinct is they're just going to botch it. And I don't know if I want that.
I just wonder if it's not the personnel, it's the resources. It'll be the connections to people. If it's not, listen, I don't want people like Gary Bettman near it either. You make a good point there. It's just what they could provide if there's the right people in place running the second women's league. That's what I kind of think of. Listen, I appreciate at least that both leagues are taking advantage right now of the wave after the Olympics. From now, I don't want to see another women's league fold. I don't want to see what happened with the CWHL again. I don't want that. Anything else on the women's stuff before we move on?
Just hopeful that, again, the momentum keeps on going.
Yeah. I mean, Marie-Philippe Poulin could be working with the Habs right now. She's not, because she wants to grow the women's league. So, don't waste that resource. Don't waste the greatest women's hockey player of all time still being around to help you out. Don't do that. Okay, my mic's just being dumb. Okay, the Leafs. Jack Campbell is out at minimum 2 weeks with a rib injury. I think Morgan Riley said that he had been dealing with it for a while, to which I ask, why did you not get this looked at?
That pisses me off. That pissed me off so much.
It's Frederick
Like the
Anderson
Muzzin thing, huh?
flashbacks.
Yep.
That honestly pissed me off so much. Like, I'm like, why? Why play? I get it. I don't like Peter Mrazek either. But why?
It's not helping anyone.
You did it last year and it bit you in the ass so hard. Thank God Jack Campbell was good, but you let Frederick Anderson play with an injury and it didn't work out for you. I'm to this day, Frederick Anderson, I very much think is a hell of a goaltender in the NHL. You go back and look at those first 2 years with the Leafs, he had the first pairing was Morgan Riley and Ron Hainsey. My God. It included Roman Polak for way too long.
Nikita Zaitsev. Like, I'm sorry, but to me is fully unacceptable. At this point, it's unacceptable to have your goaltender, your starting goaltender, play weeks with a rib injury. I think it's uncalled for, and it's a little bush league.
What do you have to say about the Arizona game? Or do you just want to just preview what we might see in the Buffalo game in less than an hour?
I mean, Peter Mrazek is I'm done. I have a headache.
Those first 2 goals were awful to watch, and I already knew when the first one went in, that was going to be the GIF circulating everywhere.
Yeah, that was bad. The Chikrin was the first Chikrin goal, I think. That was the slow motion one. We have been recording for 3 hours and I'm exhausted.
We're champs.
Again, he better have a what?
We're just champs for doing this.
Exactly. It better be a short lease for Mrazek tonight and this afternoon.
He better stand on his damn head. How about that?
Otherwise, it's going to be maybe it's a Jeff Skinner show. Who knows?
I just want league average goaltending. That's it, Peter. That's all I want.
The Habs honest loss to Vancouver. You needed that to happen. They lose to Seattle in the most comparable game I've ever watched. 2 own goals.
Yeah, what was that?
I think there was 1 goal through 7 rounds of the shootout. 1 own goal was Adam Larson for Seattle, which was bad. The other was Weidman, and Bottenbow
he fumbled it.
That was awful.
But was Adam Larson's really an own goal because he didn't smash his stick on the ice like you do in NHL? So to me,
Alex, I get what you're going for, but that was an own goal in every sense of the word. I was upset because I was hoping Seattle would win a regulation for the tank, but Adam Larson decided to just say, no, we're going to give you a chance. Seattle, you know what they do is they play the way Dom Ducharme used to play 3-on-3 overtime with the Habs. It's just we're going to wait and not take any chances, and it is very annoying to watch if you're the other team. Also, Bell Center back at full capacity. That was lovely to see. The stuff they did for Ukraine was the greatest, and there is no better arena in the world for hockey than the Bell Center. If you think otherwise, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, and I'd like to fight you. It's not as tacky as Vegas. There's a bit of class because it's Montreal. It's the mecca of hockey. Damn it, the state of hockey, Minnesota. What? Because of the Fortress? Wait for Vegas to be bad and see how long that atmosphere lasts.
No, I said the Forum.
Oh, the Forum?
Yeah.
Wasn't yesterday the anniversary of its last game too?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the Forum, but the Forum no longer. Well, it doesn't exist, but it's not. They don't play anymore. Yeah, the Forum is kind of like mythical, right? So, okay.
What about the Mattamy Athletic Center?
No. And by the way, like, am I the only one thinking that Ben Sherratt should not play anymore? Like, leading up to the deadline.
Yeah. Maximize that return.
Yeah, no. I'm surprised. Usually around now we start seeing guys being sat. I'm
surprised Chikrin was playing, and then you got hurt.
Showcased him too much.
So I feel like I gotta say this. You guys were talking about arenas, but you forgot to mention the best one.
Yes.
The Sleeman Center in Guelph. Come on, guys. How do you guys not know this? Come on. Guelph Storm, the Guelph Storm in the OHL, the Guelph Nighthawks of the CEBL.
You know what's an interesting snippet is I am looking that people still didn't know there was an outdoor game today.
Of course they didn't.
Oh, and Pierre LeBrun just freaking put out a blog about trade stuff. I'll quickly skim through this, and we can see what happens if there's any sort of LeBrun. Chikrin's injury complicates deadline plans, latest on Sherratt, Thomas Hertel, and more. If I'm the Canadians, I would pull bench. Thank you. Okay. I know. I'm too tired. We've been here for too long. Okay, I'll read this and I'll put stuff in the doc and we can talk about it on Wednesday. Okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Curtis and Alex Baumgartner once again for coming on to the show. We appreciate you both very, very much. Mike sending us stuff about Pete Davidson and Kanye West. I don't care. What else around here? By the way, Murray-Philippe Poulin getting the game winner in the U.S.-Canada rematch, because of course. Check us out on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify video, YouTube for a full video version of the show. Check out Alex stuff for the Nighthawks, Daniel stuff for CGRU, my YouTube channel. And we will check you in Wednesday for the deadlines coming up. People get excited, even though there may be no action because this league sucks. Goodbye.